Revenge films.
A month ago, I built a brand new house. Right now, it's just my husband and me living here, but since I wanted to have about 3 kids in the future, we made sure to include rooms for them as well. It turned out to be a wonderful home. Before this, we all lived in an apartment, but living in a newly built house feels completely different. Most of all, I no longer have to worry about the neighbors. In our previous apartment, the family living upstairs had 6 members, and all their kids were boys. The sound of them constantly jumping around echoed throughout the day. Of course, it's great that kids are energetic, but since I work from home, it was really tough to concentrate at times. Ever since moving into our own home, those worries have completely disappeared. Since I can work from home, I was ready to get pregnant anytime, and I was looking forward to the future. However, that peaceful life was suddenly turned upside down when my mother-in-law showed up unannounced. One day, the doorbell rang. When I checked the intercom, I saw my mother-in-law standing there. She lives alone nearby, so I assumed she had just come over to visit. But I noticed some commotion at the entrance, and when I opened the door, I was shocked to see 6 children buzzing around. Huh? What's going on? When I looked more closely, I realized they were my husband's sister's kids, 3 from each of his 2 sisters. The moment I opened the door, they all dashed into my house. Completely bewildered, I turned to my mother-in-law for an explanation. She told me that since my sisters-in-law were at work, I was supposed to watch their kids for the day. Apparently, my mother-in-law had been babysitting them since her daughters recently started struggling financially and had taken on a job themselves. She figured it would be easier if I took care of them instead. I was furious that she had decided something like this on her own, but I couldn't bring myself to say it outright to my mother-in-law. I figured that since she was the one watching them, I could tolerate it for just a day. However, the moment she stepped inside, she made herself comfortable and casually told me to make her some tea. Then she handed me a large bag full of clothes and said, "I'll leave lunch and dinner for these kids to you. Also, I brought their change of clothes, so make sure you give them a bath, too." Wait, what? How long were they planning to stay? When I realized they would be here until night, I was in shock. My sisters-in-law's kids ranged from kindergartners to elementary schoolers, and in no time, the 6 of them turned my house into complete chaos. And yet my mother-in-law didn't even try to stop them. My brand new screens were easily torn, my pristine carpet was covered in crumbs from their snacks. It was a disaster. When I finally had enough and scolded them, one of the kids started crying and ran straight to my mother-in-law, sobbing about how I had yelled at them. Then my mother-in-law snapped at me, saying, "Why are you yelling over something kids do? That's exactly why you haven't been able to have kids yet." I was completely shocked. Why did I have to put up with this? Even though I was furious, I still ended up making lunch and dinner for them and even bathing them. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law just sat there watching the Korean dramas she had subscribed to online, doing absolutely nothing to help. When my husband finally came home from work, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told him about how his mother had shown up unannounced and how the kids had wrecked the house. But instead of understanding, he just shrugged it off and said,
"It's fine, they're just kids. My sisters asked for help, so what's the big deal?"
I tried to explain that I wasn't just sitting around with nothing to do. I couldn't possibly take care of 6 kids on my own, but he was too tired to deal with it and dismissed my concerns. Eventually, they all left like a storm, leaving my house in a horrible state. I swore I would never go through that again. But then the following week, they showed up again, acting like it was the most natural thing in the world. This time, I refused to let them in. I firmly told my mother-in-law, "I can't do this anymore. If you want to watch them, do it yourself," and didn't open the door. That's when all 6 kids started wailing outside. To make things worse, my mother-in-law joined in, making a scene about how I wouldn't let them in. As someone who had just moved into a new house, the last thing I wanted was trouble with the neighbors. I wanted to get along with them, but with the kids screaming outside, I could already hear some of the neighbors muttering, "So noisy." I had no choice but to let them in. The moment I unlocked the door, the kids rushed in like a stampede. They immediately started rummaging through the fridge, grabbing drinks and snacks as if they owned the place. I had just cleaned up the mess they made last time, and within seconds they turned the house upside down again. I had had enough. I turned to my mother-in-law and firmly told her that this was unacceptable. But instead of listening, she snapped back.
My daughters are out there working hard for their families. They're not like you, a good-for-nothing housewife sitting around doing nothing all day. If you're so useless, the least you can do is take care of your nieces and nephews."
I immediately corrected her. I wasn't some unemployed freeloader. I worked from home. I had my own income and I was doing just fine, but she refused to listen. To make things worse, that night she called my husband to complain that I had refused to let them in. The moment he got home, he confronted me, saying,
I heard you didn't let Mom and the kids in today. What the hell is wrong with you? We don't have kids of our own, so we should at least help my sisters out.
That was it. I snapped. I told him straight up his sisters had kids because they chose to, and his mother decided to take on the babysitting herself. None of that had anything to do with me, so why was I the one being forced to deal with it? But instead of understanding, he shot back.
Who do you think you have to thank for this nice house? If you don't like it, then leave!
Something inside me just broke. I felt it. Fine, I'll leave. I started packing my things, and as I did, I noticed my mother-in-law watching me with a smug expression. She had won, and she knew it. With me gone, she and the kids could come and go as they pleased. Hell, she probably wouldn't even mind if I moved out permanently. She looked at me with a sly grin and said,
"Yeah, that's right. If you can't even be useful, you might as well leave."
But what neither of them seemed to realize was this. This house, they were only able to live in it because I was here too. A month later, my husband contacted me, begging me to come back. Since I needed him to sign the divorce papers anyway, I decided to go back to the house one last time. What I found when I walked in was beyond ridiculous. The place was overflowing with my mother-in-law's belongings, and my sisters-in-law were there too. Apparently, the moment I left, my mother-in-law wasted no time selling her own home and moving in, as if she had always planned to. She had been letting the kids run wild, and the house was a complete disaster. The walls were covered in crayon scribbles, and everything was a mess. My husband dropped the real reason he called me. His salary had just gone through, but after all the bills were deducted, almost nothing was left. Well, obviously. Our mortgage payments had been set based on both of our incomes. Since we opted out of bonus payments, with my earnings included, everything had been fine. My husband made over $2,000 a month, so we never had issues. But now, with just his income, the car loan, utilities, and credit card payments had all hit at once, and his entire paycheck vanished in an instant. After I spelled it out for them, my husband and his mother finally understood the situation. Then, with her usual arrogance, my mother-in-law looked down at me and said,
"Well, in that case, I suppose I'll allow you to live here again."
And to top it all off, my husband actually grinned and said,
See? Mom's fine with it, so come on, just move back in. Doesn't that sound good to you?
I let out a laugh, one of those "you've got to be kidding me" kind of laughs, and shoved the green divorce papers right in his face. I said to his face that "I'm divorcing you," and then his face turned pale instantly. When he hesitated, I added, "If you don't sign, I'll get a lawyer involved and drag this out as long as necessary." Completely defeated, he slumped over and signed. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law and sisters-in-law started panicking.
"What about us? What happens to the house? Who's going to watch the kids?"
But that is not my problem. Not long after, I heard through the grapevine that my ex-husband and his family had completely run out of money, even for their daily expenses, and ended up taking out loans. But by the next month, they couldn't make any payments, and the house was repossessed. Since they had trashed the place, scribbling all over the walls and leaving it in a total ruin, the value had dropped significantly, despite it being a brand new home. As a result, my ex and his mother had no choice but to move into a rundown apartment, still stuck with a mountain of debt. As for my sisters-in-law, with me gone, the only person left to watch their kids was my mother-in-law, but of course she didn't lift a finger. So naturally, they ended up causing problems at work and got fired. Since then, my ex has been sending me pathetic emails like, "I was wrong. I realize that I need you in my life. Let's try again." I ignored every single one before finally blocking him. Honestly, he got exactly what he deserved.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.